So, do you remember this?
So, I'm sure by now you've guessed that we're bringing Mary Poppins to Epcot in an exciting way.
Well, it seems like a lot of Disney Park fans do as well. So today, let's dive in and discuss what happened to the Mary Poppins attraction as it went from supercalifragilisticexpialidocious to the place where the lost things go in this DSNY Newscast, up next. Hi there, Bert. It's Jack from DSNY Newscast.
Oh, it's you. Hello.
I'm about to tell everyone about what happened to the Mary Poppins attraction.
Number 17 Cherry Tree Line, you say?
Yeah, that's the one. As you see, ever since I started this channel in 2017, I've covered all the developments along the way about this rumoured addition to the UK Pavilion. And eventually it was finally made official at D23 Expo in August of 2019 that Disney were creating the first ever Mary Poppins attraction in the history of the Disney parks. But then, despite all the fanfare and excitement at the time of the announcement, months went by with no sign of active construction or even site preparation, beyond that of some backstage survey markers that were apparently put in place, but never seen. Then 2020 arrived, and after the parks temporarily closed in March, I stated at the time that if Disney were pausing active construction projects because of a financial uncertainty, then projects like the Mary Poppins attraction, that hadn't even broken ground yet, were increasingly likely to be cancelled altogether. And then a few days after Walt Disney World reopened in July, Disney released an official statement that said that they were further evaluating long-term project plans, and the decision was made to postpone development of the Mary Poppins-inspired attraction. Now, this terminology of postponing development has often been used as interchangeable Disney speak for the cancellation of a project, as we saw with the Main Street Theatre proposal that was announced at D23 Expo in July of 2017, only to then be indefinitely postponed in February of 2018 and never mentioned again. So with it being over 18 months without a single solitary mention about the resumption of the Mary Poppins project, it came as a big surprise to finally hear it mentioned once again by Disney CEO Bob Chapek at the annual shareholders meeting.
A lot that we've continued to develop. Certainly the Poppins project, which I was very excited about, has had to be put on hold for a while, as has the Quinjet. But those are projects that we've got sort of in a holding pattern right now. And as our cash situation becomes a bit more robust and a little bit back to normal in terms of our liquidity, we look forward to hopefully refunding those projects in the future.
And although on the face of it, this seems like a positive development as it's the first time that this project has been mentioned in such a long time, I also don't want to give false hope, as it's not like Chapek chose to talk about this topic on his own, but instead this was an answer to a question from a shareholder who wanted a status update on these projects, in which Chapek just simply reiterated the previous sentiment from July of 2020. And then we come to the reason for why this project's on hold in the first place. As Chapek stated, it was because of the cash flow situation needing to become more robust and back to normal in terms of liquidity. But here's the reason why that argument doesn't hold water, as the daily cash flow has clearly returned to normal levels through the seemingly never-ending price increases and the introduction of the paid Genie Plus service. Disney has been posting some record quarters for the operating income for the Disney Parks segment. And so if Disney is waiting for overall liquidity to return to normal levels after the substantial hit it took during the pandemic, well then we're going to be waiting quite a while before these projects get refunded. And what makes this all the more ridiculous is it's not like the Mary Poppins attraction was even a particularly capital-intensive project, as I reported in 2020 that the estimated budget for this project was to be around $80 million, and so it wasn't like it was going to require a huge amount of capital expenditure. Therefore, it's more likely that all of this is just another case of Disney wanting to keep their tuppence
prudently, thriftily, frugally invested in the bank.
However, there is a small glimmer of hope in all of this. As you see, typically Disney can easily shuffle postponed projects off into the Imagineering archives, never to be brought back. And the reason why is because relatively few people notice, as the verbiage shields them from the negative press and harsh headlines about projects being cancelled, whilst also giving them the flexibility if they do change their mind in the future. Whereas with Mary Poppins, Disney should probably be aware by now people are not going to let this project become easily forgotten like the Main Street Theatre. As for an example, a simple random reminder on Twitter spurred a ton of renewed interest in the project and is probably what led to this question being brought up at the annual shareholders meeting. And all of this shouldn't really come as a surprise to Disney, as after all they proudly touted that when the project was announced in 2019, it was the most liked Disney Parks Instagram post of that year. Therefore, if fans keep this project alive through repeated mentions, then it will make it a lot harder for Disney to cancel this project through neglect, as they will feel the pressure to deliver something to fulfill the original promise. And so with all of that being said, now let's get into what this Mary Poppins inspired attraction was going to entail. As the official description stated that in this attraction, we would be able to step in time down Cherry Tree Lane, past Admiral Boom's house, and enter the iconic number 17, home of the Banks family, where our adventure would begin. However, despite that being a very nice marketing line, none of that gives us much in the way of any real detail of what exactly this ride was going to be. So, the first thing to understand is that this project changed quite a bit over time. As to begin with, before Mary Poppins was the chosen IP for the Pavilion, the concept was supposedly for a small but elaborate dark ride for the UK Pavilion, with something along the lines of a classic Fantasyland dark ride attraction, in the style of an Alice in Wonderland or Peter Pan's Flight, where it uses a simple bus bar ride system, but with the latest technology and effects. And then in terms of scale and scope, there was easily enough space to situate something the size of the Winnie the Pooh attraction from the Magic Kingdom, as can be seen here. However, these plans didn't last long. And as I reported in 2019, soon the attraction component was scaled back to be a flat ride instead. And despite flat rides traditionally being simple outdoor rides like Mad Hatter's Teacups, Dumbo the Flying Elephant or the Cinderella Carousel, Imagineering were looking to put a new twist on the standard flat ride by fully enclosing it inside of a show building. But whether this was a spinner or a traditional carousel, it was said to be utilising a similar projection technology to what was very effectively implemented within the now defunct Epcot Experience Centre, so that it would create 360-degree projection mapped walls, which would then fully envelop the guests into the world of Mary Poppins Returns. And the way that this would have supposedly worked in terms of a narrative is that we would have entered the Banks family home, and then through an illusioneering trick, we would then be transported into a two-dimensional cartoon world, possibly like this scene of the Royal Dalton Music Hall from the 2018 Mary Poppins Returns movie. However, then in early 2020, Jim Hill also stated that he believed the Mary Poppins edition had been scaled back even further along the lines of an Enchanted Tales of Belle setup, which would have been a whimsical musical encounter with Mary Poppins. But whatever the eventual attraction concept was going to be, the one thing that remained consistent throughout everything was the inclusion of a Cherry Tree Lane within the UK Pavilion. As you see back at D23 Expo in 2019, this piece of concept art was shown on stage, but then never released. And so we've had to make do with a photo of the cropped version that was shown at D23. At least that was the case up until now, as through some online sleuthing, I stumbled across this high-resolution digital version of the same piece of concept art. That gives us a more detailed look at what was to be expected from this Cherry Tree Lane. As first of all, we can see that the elaborately themed facades would have replaced this section of green space here. However, because that greenery backs up against an essential backstage fire access road, it meant that the attraction show building was going to be a fairly odd configuration, using the themed facades to hide a sort of L-shaped show building at the back that would have even gone right up against the entrance gateway berm. But this show building layout would have also meant that the mini maze and gazebo stage area would have also been replaced in this concept. And judging by the artwork, it looks as if this would have potentially opened up more of the UK Pavilion to create a better guest flow, taking it from a courtyard to this path here becoming Cherry Tree Lane, which actually lines up with what the Epcot Experience Centre model alluded to in its abstract configuration of the layout of the pavilion. However, no matter what the attraction was to be, this beautiful overview artwork really does illustrate that it would have been a practically perfect addition in every way. And so, in conclusion, I would really love to see this project brought back in the future, as the box office success of Mary Poppins in the 1960s is what gave Walt the financial freedom to grow WED Enterprises, which then eventually evolved into the modern day Walt Disney Imagineering. Therefore, Mary Poppins, in many ways, is a Disney movie that is more deserving than most of true representation within the Disney parks that it helped build. And so hopefully one day it will get its own attraction, as after all,
everything is possible, even the impossible.
But now, it's over to you, the Waltineers. I would like to know, what are your thoughts and opinions about the Mary Poppins inspired attraction, and if you could armchair Imagineer any type of ride system for Mary Poppins, what would it be and how would it work? And if you enjoyed today's video, then give this video a massive thumbs up, as it really does help this channel out. Share this video with a friend, and if you want more videos like this, then there should be some videos around here in a minute. And with all that being said, I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.